just wanted to take a few minutes and give a real quick little, I guess, garden tour, if you want to call it that. There's not much going on, but we have a few things that are pretty. Today is March the 24th, and I planted these tulips. I didn't plant a lot because for us, tulips usually are not perennials. You might have a few scattered here and there that will come back, but for the most part, they just don't return very well. Now, daffodils do return very well for us, but right now these tulips are wide open. But in the early morning or in the evening, the petals tighten up, so you can kind of see what they look like when they're wide open. And these are older blooms. They've been blooming for well over a week, maybe close to 2 weeks now, and I still have some that are just now emerging. But some of my favorites are these Angelique tulips. I didn't get very many of them. I think I just got a package of 5, but they are absolutely adorable. Like, these are short. Now, the Angelique tulips I have in the front yard are not quite this short, and I don't know, maybe I planted them too deep. I'm not sure, but I want you to look at these darling Angelique tulips. Look at that little blushing of pink, and look how large the bloom is. You can see compared to my hand, and like I said, this is the first year. I just planted them this past fall. This one has a little side baby right there, and you can see how just a dusting of pink. It's just so pretty, especially up against these brighter pink ones. Now, I thought these here were going to be more of a softer pink, like more of a baby doll pink. I'll put on the screen what they are, because right off the top of my head I cannot remember if these are the salmons or the pink impressions. These may be the salmon. I'm not sure. I don't want to say wrong. So, but I also planted these variegated tulips, and the blooms are cute, but the foliage is what really makes them stand out. You can see this blue and green, excuse me, yellow and blue-green variegation on these leaves. I just kind of scattered them throughout. This one hasn't opened yet, obviously. And the yarrow beside it there, this is the, I believe this is the tutti frutti pink grapefruit yarrow that I have here. It's a beautiful pink, bright pink, but it has like 3 or 4 different shades of color mixed in with the blooms, because each stage of the blooms, they have different colors. This yarrow has really spread. I'm not sure if I like that, but if you can see, this is the main planting. And then down here, look at all these little babies, and these are rooted in. And there's some here, there's some over there. Now, I don't mind it being all over because I am in love. But see, you can see one right there. These are all little baby plants coming up. So I'll have to really monitor this and just make sure that it doesn't just, completely spread beyond this circle that I have here. But I don't mind it going in here and filling in. I think that's wonderful. But they are really coming out now, and it's just March, and they have a long bloom season. But you can see inside this tulip, this variegated tulip, this is a pretty large bloom. And when it closes up, it's more of a creamy, kind of a creamy white. I haven't mulched this area, so it doesn't look very good. I need to do that. And the wind has blown so much debris over here. I'm constantly picking up stuff. But the variegation is just lovely. There's another example. If I can get the phone out of the way. So I really like those tulips, not so much because of the blooms, but because the foliage is so pretty. These are pretty much spent, but they've kind of got a pink and white color to them. You can kind of see. but they're very strong. We've had some intense winds, and they have done quite well. I have pruned back my drift roses. These are the apricot drift roses, and you can see all of the new growth there and here. There's a couple more yarrow right there and right there. Those are the firefly, am I saying that right? Firefly diamond, and they're gonna send up bloom stalks with little white heads on them, and I thought that would be really pretty when this rose is in bloom. This is the Queen of Sweden, which is a very soft, beautiful pink. So I think it'll be really pretty against the white blooms. This whole area over here is sort of under construction. This greenhouse has not been built very long, 3 years now. And you know, with just me doing everything pretty much and limited funds, you know how budgets go, I haven't been able to do just a tremendous amount every year. But as you can see, I'm trying to slowly plant things in here. I just planted this tree. This is a Chamaecyparis obtusa spiralis. That's a mouthful, but it sort of has a twisted, it doesn't grow very wide, and I can put a picture on the screen to show you what it looks like mature, but really unique specimen. You know, this wind is extremely strong. Add some vertical interest, maybe a little bit of like whimsy out here. But these tulips over here also, this area floods. If you've watched many of my videos, I complain about every time we get a rain, the water comes off of this downspout, and this is a very low area. So water just sits here. So all of this area where that's brown is, it just floods. And so the tulips on the end here, like this little guy, he's just drowned and just had too much water. And these are very much spent because they've been in bloom for some time now. There's another lovely tulip. I need to weed so bad here. I don't know what this is. I need to look it up. It's got little tiny cute flowers on it, but it is so invasive and weedy. It doesn't grow very tall, and it only likes cold weather. But still, I don't want it here. It's very easy to pull up, actually, if I just get out here and do it. But look at this bloom. Isn't that neat? He's got that yellow down in there with this pink. I think that is so pretty. It looks like, matter of fact, I want to think maybe the name of it is Pink Lemonade, but I'm not sure, so I'll put that picture and the name on the screen for you. But I have a little planting of 5 tulips here. Again, and this is my Queen of Sweden rose that I pruned back pretty hard. And so it should be really pretty here before long. I've got daffodils coming up here that have not bloomed, same on the other side. And then walking over to this little area, which is also under construction. A lot of stuff needs to be pruned. This is my all gold Hakana Cloa grass, and hopefully it's alive. But this is the north side of the building, so this whole area has not warmed up really enough to get some of the worm-loving things to emerge. But you can see I've got some more of those variegated tulips over here. I really hope these come back for me, but I am not expecting it. Lots of daffodils. And then I have some, this is the lamium, and it loves cold. It really never went dormant. And this is on the north side, so it just got hit hard with north winds. But I've decided that the only way for me to keep lamium alive is it's got to be in full shade. It does not like it when it gets hot, and we have very hot and humid summers here in Kentucky. We are in zone 7A. Just got moved from zone 6B, and you know, our winters don't get too cold, but we've had some Arctic blasts in the past that have gotten pretty cold. This is the Spot On Pulmonaria, and it's starting to emerge nicely. It got kind of ratty and dead looking, but it's really come out quickly. That is a rhododendron that rhododendrons just don't do well for me. There's another really pretty bright daffodil. Again, these were all just brand new plantings, so I'm hoping that they thicken up, the bulbs sort of thicken up, and maybe I'll have more blooms next year. Another variegated tulip there. I've got some heuchera here. I think this is the berry smoothie, I think. That you can see that there are three, one, and then two, and then three distinct areas of growth. So I think I could go in here. I think I could separate these out and actually get 3 plants out of this. There's some more lamium. This is a little tiny quickfire hydrangea that I need to prune back. I literally didn't prune it back on purpose because these spent blooms remind me that there's actually something there, because I have a tendency to come in with a shovel and just go to chopping and realize I have a perennial there. So I deliberately leave these so that I don't forget, you know, that there's actually something growing there. More daffodils that have not bloomed yet because it just hasn't gotten warm on this side of the building. This is the Trevi Fountain little pulmonaria or lungwort. It's already putting blooms on. This little guy puts on blooms like crazy. I mean, it's barely emerging and it's already wanting to send out blooms. So I really love this lungwort. It does really well, and the blooms on it are just adorably tiny and like an electric kind of bluish color. Very pretty. There's some more lamium. And this is another yarrow that, this is also the Tutti Frutti pink grapefruit. So they're really starting to come out. That little ferny foliage on it, I think is just so pretty. All winter, this particular shrub or small tree, which is called the nightlight chamaecyparis, it stayed bright and yellow all winter, and as you can see inside, it's a dark green color, and then it starts getting more of a chartreuse color, and then it gets more of a yellow, and then in the winter it'll get this bronzing on the tips, but in the summer it's replaced by just bright yellow. And sometimes too much sun, it'll actually bleach it out, almost the tips will almost get a white color, but it's multi shades in there, so it gives it a really cool 3D look. I've got clematis coming out. You can see it's really, I need to research this one because some of these things you're supposed to prune back hard, some of them you're not. There's like a group 1, 2, and 3, and I'm not exactly sure which one that one is. I need to figure it out. That thing is really grown. There's another neat tree that I planted. It kind of has that little whimsy look to it. This one is the it's a slender Hinoki cypress. But it's kind of a neat, just limbs kind of going every which way, real open, kind of grows in a more of a crooked kind of fashion. These daffodils, some of these are absolutely beautiful. This one here, look at the ruffling. Isn't that beautiful? Here's another really pretty, kind of a peachy color one. I just planted planted these this past fall. I should have mulched around them. Isn't that just so cute? Oh, I just love that. Man, they have really come up with some pretty amazing looking daffodils. My ajuga is come alive again. It was always alive, but it's really starting to send out new growth. That is an apricot or halo apricot hollyhock. Here are some more daffodils. I get excited when these things come up because it's like, yep, spring is actually here. There's another hollyhock. Most things are still dormant. Another yarrow. If you happen to watch any of my videos from last summer, I think it was last summer, this plant here was so root bound. I mean, it was embarrassing. It was so root bound, and I just didn't even know if it would live. But it not only lived, but it really filled out, and it is looking beautiful. This is the Golden Globe Arborvitae, and it also has that really cool kind of a 3D look to it because you can see the green and then the yellow tips. There was no bronzing on this one, which is interesting. And you know, we had single-digit temperatures, but I'm just amazed at how healthy and how strong and hardy these little arborvitaes are, because I just really was worried about it, but it's doing great. This is the candy corn spirea by Proven Winners, and it's absolutely, I mean, it's putting on a show. Now, this would have been twice the size, but the rabbits pruned back just about every single limb, so it looks very dwarf right now. But it's only been in the ground for let me think, is this the first, has it been through one full season? I think I planted this one last spring, last summer maybe. I'll have to go back and look, but I want you to look at the color, and it's multi-toned. So if you look, the new growth is this bright fiery red, and then the older ones are turning yellow, and sometimes you'll see 3 different colors on this plant. Down inside there, it'll be more of a chartreuse green, then you'll have a yellow, and then you'll have the red. But this candy corn spirea is beautiful. Now, it is deciduous, so it will lose all of its leaves, but in the spring it's well, you can see what it looks like, and this is a very eaten on plant. So if, imagine this was bigger, what a statement it would make in the garden. It also has beautiful little pink flowers on it. So it does produce flowers, but you know, the foliage is what's so amazing. Here at the barn, I planted some hellebores, and I love hellebores. I think that they are just a classy looking flower. A lot of them have really awesome foliage, but you can see this one really stands up nice and tall. This is an Ice and Roses variety, and it has some blooms that are actually facing kind of upward. You can see that one and this one. Even though these are not a super bright color, they still are a neat look. Look at that little guy. So cute, and it's been so windy, and they've been standing upright. This is one of my favorites. This is one of the Frost Kiss series plants. It's Glenda's Gloss, and this bloom, let's see if I can find one that's a good representation. You can see around the edging, it's got this pink, but inside it's sort of a mix of yellow and chartreuse. Isn't that the sweetest thing? But what's really cool about this one is the leaves on this one are kind of a variegation. Now most of these leaves I have cut off because they were kind of tattered, but they get really big and they're a variegation look to them, so it's a really unique plant even when it's not in bloom. Another one of the Ice and Roses varieties is this one here, which it's also very pretty. It's got a really dark color to its bloom. Now these were just planted, so this is a very immature planting. I've got another little baby one right there, and I don't know if the rabbits chewed him down, but ooh, it's another Glenda's gloss. He's struggling. Here's some more hellebores that are sort of an old variety. They face downward, but you can still see the blooms. And the back side of the bloom is really, really pretty, so I don't think that's a huge deal. But this bloom is so delicate and so sweet. Isn't that just the sweetest thing you ever saw? And it's had blooms on it for a long, long time. And it's putting out new blooms. Now this one will seed itself. There's a little baby here. There's a little baby here. It'll take years for them to do anything, and I sometimes step on them accidentally. But I love hellebores. This area here gets basically no sun, and it can withstand very cold temperatures. Here's some more. Again, they're facing down, but look, isn't that glorious? So pretty. Here is another frost kiss one that I just planted last year, so it's really not that pretty because it's just not that mature. You can see it's got a little bloom. This one's called Anna's Red. Here's a mature bloom on it to give you an idea. This is a frost kiss, Anna's Red. Yeah, I just want to be sure. And it also has kind of a variegated leaf on it. I need to prune back these heucheras. They are really, really disgusting looking, but they're really, really a nice heuchera one when you prune them back and they send out new leaves. I don't know if you can kind of see. This is what the new leaves look like. But then look at the veining. These are obviously old, spent leaves. I need to eliminate those. But that's a really neat heuchera, and it's done very well here. And it gets very cold. It stays kind of damp, and it also can get really hot in the summers. And it's done really, really well. I probably need to divide these up, which would be great because then I get free plants, right? If you're looking for a tree around your home or in your garden that blooms super early, this hardy almond was the very first tree to bloom. Sometimes it's blooming and we still get snow. It's absolutely beautiful. Now, a lot of the hardy almonds will say that they are dwarf and they only get like 10 feet. Well, that's not the case. This one is huge. I planted it too close to the house because I thought it was going to stay small. And so, now granted, this tree is probably, 14 years old now at this point. It's been here since probably 2008, 2009. So, yeah. But it blooms first thing before my cherry trees or anything blooms. This one is blooming. Another one that blooms really early is, obviously your cherry trees will bloom early, but the Jane Magnolia is another. Now it usually does stay fairly small. Now, this Jane Magnolia has been in our yard for the same amount of time, and it's probably, I don't know, only about 14 feet tall, maybe, guesstimating. And I love the bark on this. It's a very pretty gray mottled bark. specimen even in the winter, but you can see all these lovely little purple blooms, and it will sometimes bloom twice. I'm sorry for the wind. It will sometimes bloom twice. Smell it. Yes, it does have a scent. It's not overwhelming. It's a very, very faint scent, but the Jade Magnolia is deciduous. It loses all of its leaves, and then the first thing to appear are these beautiful pink blooms. One last plant that I have to brag on, and if you've watched any of my other videos, you know that I'm obsessed with this plant. This is the phenomenal lavender, and I have a whole video where I pruned it back and last fall, and I pruned it back pretty hard, but it still had some warm days, so it put on a little bit of new growth, and it stayed this bluish green, kind of a silvery color all winter long. I'm so sorry about the wind. It stayed this beautiful bluish green color, and you can just go in and just touch the foliage, and you can just smell it in the air. I mean, it's amazing. But it's extremely drought tolerant. The pollinators adore it, and this has not been here very long. I think it's maybe gone through 2 winters, and I had little tiny pots. I want to say they were maybe 2.5 by 2.5 inches pots, so they were little nothings when I planted them, and they have, well, quintupled probably in size. But they're a 4-season interest plant, because they just stay beautiful like this, evergreen all winter. And in the summer they'll send up, you know, these long stalks of lavender blooms that just kind of sway in the wind, and they will be covered in pollinators. So phenomenal lavender is an amazing lavender. I wish I had more of it. I really would like to have it like all down through here. This is a south-facing wall, and it gets baked, and the soil here is horrible because this is mostly clay where they dug for our home, our foundation. We built this house in '07, but I didn't start planting things until way later. I planted a few trees, but I didn't know diddly squat when I was, you know, at that point. I just bought whatever I saw at the garden center that looked pretty. So anyway, get you some phenomenal lavender, because it's an awesome plant. You won't regret it. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching, and have a blessed day.